Hi,
Hi,
everybody.
everyone. My name is Amy, and this is Stephanie, and we work at the Villa of Hope. And today we're going to be talking about vaping.
Yeah, we have a little slideshow and a little bit of a lesson for something that's pretty prevalent in our society right now that we, want to make sure we can give some education and facts on. So I think Miss Amy's pulling up the slideshow, showing how fancy we are.
Right now, perfect. Can you see it?
Yes, it looks awesome. So we have a couple audiences that this is going out to. So first thing we talk about is why vaping, right? So why do we start talking about vaping? And when we think about that, we know that there's been an 84% rise in teenagers and preteens that are vaping and using vapes right now. So it's a really important topic. So why do we think this has become so popular? And Miss Amy, we've even had some kids kind of tell us their thoughts about this, correct?
Yes, so what we've heard before is because of the flavors that are out there, we have flavors like, Sour Patch Kids, we have mango, we have all sorts of different flavors that are really getting people wanting to try it, right? And if it wasn't for the flavors, would you really try it? So another thing we hear is that because you can do those really cool cloud tricks, that's really drawing attention.
Yeah, I think too it's a new trend. It's something that is people think is cool or their curiosity brings it up. And they also, when we talk a little bit more into our presentation, you're going to see that there are a lot of companies that are also making things so they can be secretive and discreet. And this becomes popular with kids that they can be cool or secretive about their use. So it is definitely also an addiction that people are trying it and getting addicted. And then it's not just popular, but it's a need. Okay.
Another big thing is because it doesn't smell like cigarettes. So there's really no odor left on your clothes. That's a
Definitely. That's a good one.
So here we have a few misconceptions. We hear this one a lot. It's safer than smoking cigarettes. So what we're going to do today is actually fill your head with the knowledge and the facts about how harmful vaping really is to you and your body.
And when e-cigarettes and when vaping came out, when e-cigarettes first came out, they were definitely being sold so that people could quit smoking cigarettes. So they were told that they're safe for you. There's absolutely no respiratory problems that are going to come from it. And they had no idea what they're talking about. We still now don't know a lot of the long-term effects of vaping, but we do know that it's not safe for you and that there are many negative effects. A lot of times kids will ask us and adults, well, so what's the deal? What's worse, smoking cigarettes or vaping? And basically our answer is they both are. They just have different ways that they will harm you. They are both addiction to nicotine, which is a very difficult addiction to fight. So some other misconceptions: I'm not addicted. I just do it because some of my friends vape. It's social. It's something I can stop. We hear that a lot. And a lot of kids say, I do it just because I like the flavors or I like to do the tricks. But what they don't realize is, just like anything else, it becomes an addictive habit in so many ways. You're doing it over and over, you're doing the habit, plus the fact that a lot of times kids will say, oh, there's no nicotine in the juice, but we know that there is actually nicotine in a lot of the juices. Even though they can market it and tell you that there isn't, they still put nicotine in it. And I think further in, we're going to tell you a little bit more of what comes in the juices.
Yes.
The last couple, I don't have any trouble breathing now. It's not going to happen to me, which is interesting. A lot of kids will say that, but we're also starting to see a lot on media and through different things in hospitals that it is actually causing a lot of breathing problems with young kids. So that's something I think that we can no longer kind of fall back on. And everyone is doing it is not true. There was and continues to be a huge spike, but it doesn't mean that everyone's doing it. Anything else on that one, Miss Amy? No?
I don't think so. So here is a picture of a few different style vape pens that you might see out there. And then over to the right, we have the anatomy of how a vape pen actually works. What you'll see is the long tip is where the battery is, and they're making them really, really cheap to produce a lot of them. And what happens is they explode a lot. So you might have seen some gruesome pictures online that you can look at where it's really doing a number to your mouth, or if you have it in your pockets, it can burn your skin. It's definitely doing a lot of damage.
I think too, it's important to know, because we do a lot of groups with alternative kids that are using drugs and are vaping quite a bit, and they have a lot of joy in the behavior of making these pens, taking them apart, filling them with, finding more ways that they can put nicotine or marijuana or other things in it. And if you look at like kind of the different ones in there, the mods and then the thinner looking pen ones, there's so many differences in them. But you have to remember that you are taking a water and whatever else mixture, and you are heating it to a very, very high temperature to then turn into a vapor and then being inhaled into your lungs, along with the juice that has the glycolic oil in it, which none of those are meant to go into our lungs and to do that kind of damage. So a lot that goes into that.
So
So
here,
go ahead.
here's a picture of something you probably have seen around, the Juul in particular. This is a good picture to show just how small it is, and it can fit in the palm of your hand, more so to be discreet about it. If you're, you know, doing something you shouldn't be doing, you need to hide it. And so the Juul thought, hey, it's a great way to get more kids, younger people, into vaping their products.
Definitely. Something else to add about the Juul is they were the company that when they came out, just like Aimee said, they made it so it was discreet and parents wouldn't realize what it looked like, or that, you know, they would just think it was a thumb drive or something else. So part of that was to keep kids' addiction going. The other part was Juul was one of the first companies that came out that you were able to put a way higher percentage of nicotine in your vape. So kids were getting quite a rush when they were taking that hit. And Juul was behind that, the first company to kind of do that. So continuing to get kids to use more amounts of nicotine, and then getting addicted younger and younger and faster and faster. All right, what's our next one? Awesome, okay.
So when people say, oh, smoking or vaping isn't as bad as cigarettes, so here's a picture of what's actually going into your body, going into your lungs. So here are just a few of the chemicals listed. So we have cadmium found in batteries, acetone, which is nail polish remover. We have all different types of metals. So here you have nickel and lead. And then we have something formaldehyde, which I'm sure most of you have heard of before. What is formaldehyde, Miss Stephanie?
So formaldehyde is a drug that's used when someone dies or passes away. The funeral home will put that in their body along with other chemicals to make sure that the body doesn't decompose for services or things like that. So really strong drug, not something that I think I'd want to be ingesting into my body. And just like if we look at some of the other ones, and when we compare this to a cigarette as well, there is over 7,000 chemicals in a cigarette, and a lot of these other chemicals that we're seeing in a vape. So when we go back to that question, you know, vaping or cigarette smoking, the dangers are there with both of them very clearly. Can I talk about juices for a minute, Aim?
Yes.
So if you look down at the bottom at the juices, like we said earlier, those were made to get kids interested so that it didn't smell, so that they were telling their friends, oh, you got to try blue raspberry, you know, this flavor's so great. So it got people, you know, kind of less worried about doing it, more interested in the flavor. The thing that we've learned is we know that they've done a lot of research on these liquids, and they've taken apart what's in there. And a lot of what they've found is fungi and mold and formaldehyde in the liquids, because the liquids are not regulated by the FDA, the Federal Drug Administration. So basically someone could make them in their garage, and they basically do, and you can put in whatever you want. So even if they say no nicotine in the juices, most of the times they've found through doing this research that there is nicotine in there, and that there's a lot of dangerous chemicals in the juices. So even when kids say to us, I'm not using nicotine, I'm just juicing, well, guess what? There's dangers in that as well.
So what's in a vape cloud? So we've all heard secondhand smoke is pretty harmful and it causes some cancer. So what about a vape cloud? So here is a picture, just some of the harmful chemicals already listed. We have the nicotine, the formaldehyde, carcinogens, and all other ones. So if you think it's fun to just, you know, blow the vape cloud in someone's face, it's not cool to do because it could be harmful.
Definitely. And even though it might have this fruity smell to it that masks it and makes us think, you know, oh, we want someone else to smell it or it's not dangerous, the hidden dangers are definitely in there. So we talk a lot about the fact that we don't know yet the full extent of what vaping is going to do long-term to people's lungs and body and circulation and heart disease and all that stuff. But we do know there is a certain disease called popcorn lung that is directly related to vaping. So directly comes from vaping. And if you look at the two lungs, you can see the right-hand side, the popcorn lung, how constricted the airway is there, which would make breathing so much harder for people. If you look at the normal lung and how big that airway is and what vaping does. And that whole thing came about because factory workers in the popcorn factories used to breathe in the same kind of chemicals and flavors from the popcorn, like candy corn or, you know, whatever the flavors were. And they started noticing that they were getting diseases similar to this. And now they're noticing that kids and people that are vaping are getting the same disease from all those chemicals and the glycolic oil that's going in and affecting and inflaming the lungs. Okay, so definitely a risk that comes just particular from vaping.
And so here is a list of some of the type of drugs that can be used in a vape. So nicotine is a big one, marijuana, which we all know about, and some other ones that you might not think about. So crystal meth, heroin, some other forms of marijuana, and even ketamine can be used in a vape.
Yep, and the thing with marijuana in the K2, we talk about synthetic marijuana or fake weed, is a lot of times you can't tell the difference between the synthetic marijuana and marijuana. So if someone's using a marijuana pen or a dab pen, or they're putting a bud in there, so many different ways to be able to smoke marijuana through vaping, you might not know what someone's offering you. So just another thing to be aware of. And it also shows you how much vaping has expanded from when it first initially started with the e-cigarette, where the sole purpose was to help people stop smoking cigarettes. That is no longer the sole purpose. The sole purpose is, you know, high amounts of nicotine, getting high on marijuana, getting high on other drugs. So while some people may be using it saying, I'm trying to quit smoking, the higher and higher percentages are using it for these other drug reasons.
And so then with what's happening with the coronavirus and the pandemic, so vaping and the virus, how does that play, Ms. Stephanie?
So there's been some research going on about, obviously, when we showed you the slide about the popcorn lung, we know that vaping is very dangerous to our respiratory system and our lungs. It is wreaking havoc on our lungs. We have seen many adolescents and young adults and adults ending up in the hospital on ventilators because just vaping is doing so much damage and inflammation to their lungs. And we know that this COVID-19 is a disease and a virus that directly attacks the lungs and breathing. So this is definitely putting people at a stronger risk for not being able to battle the COVID-19 in a good way. So you are basically cutting your resources on making it more difficult for you to be healthy and fight this virus that we're all kind of struggling with right now. So it's definitely something to keep in mind.
Yes, and another thing to note too is when you're vaping, you usually pass around the pen and share it with other people. And so we have to practice the social distancing. So if you are vaping, please don't be sharing that with others right now.
I didn't even think about that, Amy. And you know, the other thing is we found is research is showing us, which is a bizarre thing, that we would think that when kids started vaping, they had stopped smoking cigarettes. But what research is showing us, if there's been a jump in kids vaping and using cigarettes as well. So not only are they just vaping, but they're going back to smoking cigarettes as well. So that is very concerning to us for many, many reasons, because then you're getting the double whammy of lung disease, circulation, heart disease, all the other chemicals and toxins that are coming in. So we really want you guys to be aware and make some good choices and be educated. And we're the Villa of Hope Prevention team. We are here to answer questions and to give you updated information, and just hope that you make some good choices.
And so if you ever need to reach out and contact us, we do have our emails listed, and we'd love to hear back from you.
Thanks so much for tuning in with us today, and stay healthy.
Bye.